Brendan Fevola's wife Alex Fevola files for divorce after husband caught cheating again. Before we dive into this absolutely devastating story, quick favour. If you're loving the content on Unpopular Aussie Opinions, smash that subscribe button. Over 92% of viewers watch without subscribing. It costs nothing, but means the world to us. Did you hit it? Legend. Thanks so much. Now back to the main event. Alex Fevola has finally had enough, and after years of standing by her husband through scandal after scandal, she's filed for divorce from Brendan Fevola after he was caught cheating again. Picture this. One of the most high-profile relationships in Australian sports history, a marriage that survived public humiliation, gambling addiction, alcohol problems, and multiple previous infidelity scandals, has finally reached its breaking point. Alex, who's been the picture of loyalty and forgiveness for over 2 decades, has apparently discovered that Brendan's been unfaithful yet again, and this time, there's no coming back from it. The news has sent shockwaves through the AFL community and beyond, with fans who've watched this couple's tumultuous journey wondering how many chances one person can give before they finally say enough is enough. Stick around, because what we're about to unpack isn't just another celebrity divorce. This is a story about loyalty, betrayal, and the question of whether some people are simply incapable of change, no matter how many opportunities they're given. Now, for those who somehow aren't familiar with the Fevola saga, let me bring you up to speed on one of the most dramatic relationships in Australian sporting history. Brendan Fevola was an absolute superstar on the AFL field, a goal-kicking machine who played for Carlton and briefly for Brisbane, winning multiple Coleman medals and establishing himself as one of the most talented forwards of his generation. But off the field? Mate, that's where things got messy. Fevola's personal life became almost as famous as his football career, with a string of controversies that included public drunkenness, gambling problems that saw him lose millions of dollars, and infidelity scandals that played out in the tabloids for everyone to see. Through it all, Alex Fevola stood by her man, defending him publicly, supporting him through rehab and recovery, and presenting a united front even when the entire country was telling her to walk away. The history of infidelity in the Fevola marriage is well documented and absolutely heartbreaking when you really think about it. This isn't the first time Brendan's been caught cheating. Not even close. Over the years, there have been multiple occasions where his wandering eye and inability to stay faithful have become public knowledge. Each time, Alex has been faced with the same impossible decision. Walk away and break up the family, or stay and give him another chance, hoping that this time will be different, that he's finally learned his lesson and will change his ways. And each time, until now, she's chosen to stay. She's forgiven him, worked through the pain, attended couples counseling, and tried to rebuild the trust that was shattered by his actions. But apparently, there's a limit to how many times one person can forgive the same betrayal, and Brendan has finally pushed Alex past that breaking point. According to sources close to the situation, and let's be honest, with the Fevolas, there are always sources willing to talk, Alex discovered Brendan's latest infidelity in the most devastating way possible. We are not talking about rumors or speculation. This was concrete evidence that left absolutely no room for denial or excuses. The details are still emerging, and out of respect for Alex and their children, we won't delve into every sort of detail. But what we do know is that this wasn't just a one-time mistake or a moment of weakness. This was a pattern of behavior that showed Brendan hasn't learned anything from his past mistakes, hasn't grown as a person, and apparently has no intention of honoring his marriage vows. For Alex, who sacrificed so much of her own dignity and self-respect to keep this marriage together, discovering that Brendan was still carrying on behind her back must have been absolutely crushing. The reaction from the public has been overwhelmingly supportive of Alex, and honestly, it's about time. For years, people have been critical of her decision to stay with Brendan, questioning why she would continue to forgive someone who repeatedly betrayed her trust. But now that she's finally made the decision to leave, the support has been pouring in from all directions. Social media has been flooded with messages praising Alex for her strength, applauding her for finally putting herself first, and expressing relief that she's no longer willing to tolerate Brendan's behavior. Women's groups have held her up as an example of someone who finally found the courage to leave a toxic situation, even after investing decades into a relationship. The overwhelming sentiment is that Alex deserves so much better than what Brendan has given her, and that this divorce is long overdue. But let's talk about Brendan for a moment, because his behavior in all of this is absolutely maddening. Here's a bloke who's been given more second chances than most people get in a lifetime. He's had a wife who stood by him through gambling addiction, stood by him through alcohol problems, stood by him through public humiliation, and stood by him through previous infidelity scandals. Alex could have walked away at any point and been completely justified in doing so, but she chose to stay and support him, to believe in his potential for change, to give him opportunity after opportunity to prove he could be a better husband and father. And what does Brendan do with all those chances? He throws them away by cheating again. It's almost impressive in its stupidity. How do you have a woman that loyal, that forgiving, that supportive, and still decide to risk everything by being unfaithful? The level of selfishness and self-sabotage on display here is staggering. The impact on their children is something that can't be ignored in all of this. Brendan and Alex have daughters who've grown up watching their father's public scandals play out in the media, who've had to deal with classmates and friends knowing intimate details about their family's dysfunction, and who've seen their mother repeatedly humiliated by their father's actions. Now they're going to have to navigate their parents' divorce, deal with the inevitable media circus that will surround it, and try to maintain relationships with both parents despite everything that's happened. These kids didn't ask for any of this. They didn't choose to have a father whose inability to control his impulses has destroyed their family. And while divorce is undoubtedly difficult for children, you could argue that growing up in a household where infidelity and betrayal are normalized is even more damaging in the long run. The financial implications of this divorce are going to be significant and complicated. Brendan Fevola's financial situation has been precarious for years, having lost millions to gambling and poor financial decisions during and after his football career. Alex has been working as a model and influencer, building her own brand and income streams, partly out of necessity given Brendan's financial mismanagement. Now they're going to have to divide assets, work out custody arrangements, and figure out how to maintain two separate households. Given Brendan's history with money, there are serious questions about whether he'll be able to meet his financial obligations in terms of child support and any settlement Alex is entitled to. This could get very messy very quickly, especially if Brendan's pride makes him difficult to deal with during the divorce proceedings. What's particularly interesting is how this divorce reflects broader conversations about infidelity, forgiveness, and knowing when to walk away from a relationship. Alex Fevola's journey is one that resonates with countless women who found themselves in similar situations, trapped in relationships with men who repeatedly betray their trust but promise to change. There's immense pressure on women to forgive, to keep families together, to believe in redemption and second chances. But Alex's decision to finally leave sends a powerful message that there's a limit to forgiveness, that repeated betrayal doesn't deserve endless chances, and that walking away doesn't make you weak, it makes you strong enough to value yourself over a relationship that's become toxic. The AFL community's response has been relatively muted, which is interesting in itself. Fevola's been out of the league for years now, so there's less institutional connection to protect or worry about. But many former players who knew Brendan during his playing days have privately expressed support for Alex, with some admitting they're not surprised by this latest scandal given Fevola's history. The general sentiment seems to be sadness that things have ended this way, but also acknowledgement that this outcome was probably inevitable given Brendan's pattern of behavior and apparent inability to change. Brendan's own reaction to the divorce filing has been complicated. According to reports, he's alternated between trying to win Alex back, promising yet again that he's changed and begging for another chance, and getting angry and defensive when she refuses to budge. It's classic behavior from someone who's finally facing real consequences for their actions. When empty promises and apologies don't work anymore, when the person you've hurt has finally built up enough strength to walk away, the reality of what you've lost starts to sink in. But here's the thing. If Brendan genuinely wanted to change, if he genuinely valued his marriage and his family, he had years and years to prove it. He had countless opportunities to get his act together, to be faithful, to be the husband and father his family deserved. He chose not to. So this regret he's feeling now. It's not regret about his behavior. It's regret about finally facing consequences for that behavior. The media coverage of this divorce has been extensive, with every tabloid and entertainment show weighing in on the story. Some coverage has been sympathetic to Alex, focusing on her strength and resilience in finally walking away. Other coverage has been more salacious, digging into the details of Brendan's latest infidelity and speculating about who the other woman might be. And of course, there are the inevitable think pieces about celebrity relationships, the pressures of being married to a professional athlete, and whether people like Brendan Fevola are capable of monogamy. It's all a bit exhausting, but it speaks to how invested the Australian public has been in this relationship over the years. Looking forward, the question becomes what's next for both Brendan and Alex. For Alex, hopefully this divorce represents a fresh start, an opportunity to build a life that's not defined by her husband's scandals and betrayals. She's built her own career and brand, she has her own following and income, and she's shown incredible strength in making this decision. With time and healing, there's every reason to believe she'll thrive on her own. For Brendan, the future is less clear. Will this finally be the wake-up call he needs to seriously address whatever issues drive his self-destructive behavior? Or will he continue down the same path, losing the respect of his children and whatever public goodwill he has left? Only time will tell, but his track record doesn't inspire much confidence. The broader lesson from the Fevola divorce is about self-respect and knowing your worth. Alex Fevola gave her marriage every possible chance to work. She forgave when most people wouldn't have. She supported her husband through problems that would have sent most spouses running for the hills. But ultimately, she recognized that you can't fix someone who doesn't want to be fixed, that loyalty and forgiveness shouldn't mean accepting repeated betrayal, and that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away. It's a lesson that resonates far beyond celebrity relationships and into the everyday experiences of people dealing with infidelity and broken trust. So here we are, watching the final chapter of one of Australian sport's most dramatic relationships play out in real time. Alex Fevola has filed for divorce after Brendan was caught cheating again, and this time, there's no going back. For fans who've followed this couple's journey over the years, it's a sad but perhaps inevitable conclusion. For Alex, it represents freedom from a marriage that's caused her nothing but pain and humiliation. And for Brendan, it's the consequence of years of selfish behavior finally catching up with him in a way he can't charm or apologize his way out of. The Fevola marriage is over, and honestly, it's probably for the best.